welcome to another HRO Today educational podcast. In this series, we aim to provide you with the latest workforce management approaches and best practices in HR. I'm Debbie Bola, the editorial director of HRO Today magazine. Since the onset of COVID-19, it's been a challenging time for organizations, leaders, and their employees, and the pressure is taking a toll. According to the new 2020 Culture Report from Achievers, 40% of employees don't feel appreciative for the work they've done during the pandemic. In fact, only 1/3 of employees have received recognition in the past 6 months, despite a strong correlation between recognition and engagement levels. So what are HR leaders to do? Today I have with me Dr. Natalie Baumgartner, Chief Workforce Scientist at Achievers, who will offer some proven strategies that can help organizations realign their focus. Dr. Natalie, you call yourself a culture and engagement nerd. What are some trends you've been seeing in these areas during the pandemic?
Well, Debbie, in the Workforce Institute 2020 Culture Report that Achievers just released a couple of weeks ago, we showed that culture alignment, which is the degree to which an organization's actions align with their unique company values, that alignment has really suffered during the pandemic, with a lot of organizations saying that they're just not aligning those practices with their values as well as they did in the past. And there are a couple of big ramifications of that. We know that culture alignment corresponds with employee engagement, and we know that culture alignment also drives business results. And so it's really a critical finding to see that we're just not doing as good a job as we usually do as organizations in ensuring that everything we do, how we're developing, hiring, engaging our people, solving problems, investing, that we're aligning with those values. And it's concerning because employee engagement, it's especially important right now when a lot of companies are still, working through the challenges of the pandemic, which has no end in sight yet, and need to be focusing on building resilience in their organization. So we think it's just incredibly important for leaders to get clear on what those core values are, the 4 to 6 that define how they want to do business, and then work on aligning everything they do. And that can start, in little ways. It doesn't have to be massive organization-wide initiatives, just simply ensuring that as leadership teams are making decisions, as resources are getting invested in different areas of the organization, as hiring decisions are being made, as development decisions are being made, that we're aligning with our core values is really important because our employees really need that right now.
And which groups are being especially affected by COVID-19?
Oh, boy, it's all about the managers. So managers are, according to our research, really feeling the least supported in this crisis. They were the most likely to say that they lacked work-life balance, and they're simply feeling the most pressure right now. And we know that managers account for 70% of the engagement of their people beneath them. It's a well-supported finding, and so it's really important that we focus on our managers, and they should be business critical for organizations, because if our managers are disengaged, if they're feeling overwhelmed, if they are not able to manage balance within their lives, that will quickly spread to their teams. We need our managers feeling as resourced as possible during this challenging time. We need to ensure that we're checking in with them, that we're giving them the support that they need to not only meet their own goals and their own objectives and to bolster their own engagement, but so that they have the tools that they need to then support the people beneath them.
And what are some specific ways that organizations can build engagement?
So the Achievers Workforce Report identified a couple of key areas to focus on. First of all, recognition is very important. We know that individuals that were recognized in the last week are much more likely to be engaged today. So that frequent recognition is incredibly important in terms of a driver of engagement. 40% of the people in our study reported that they didn't feel recognized for the work that they've been doing during COVID-19. And recognition was the number one request of individuals in terms of what would help them to feel more supported in their roles. And that spanned levels within an organization, that spanned industries, and that spanned geographical locations around the world. So we need to be focusing on ensuring that recognition is happening even when we're in the midst of a crisis. And in fact, even more important now than ever. And the second main area of focus that came out through our report was that employee voice and two-way communication is vital. Organizations that are surveying their employees more than 4 times a year had more engaged, better supported employees. And this type of pulse surveying or continuous listening really makes it easy for managers to take action on local employee feedback, making sure that everyone is feeling heard, issues they're coming up against are identified and acted upon, and that they're feeling valued. Back to our point around recognition, that we want to make sure that those recognition behaviors we're engaging in are working. And so by focusing on recognition and two-way communication with our employees, we're really then tackling a couple of the most critical areas to focus on during this COVID-19 pandemic.
Dr. Natalie, earlier you mentioned that cultural alignment has suffered during the pandemic. Can you tell me what specific changes have occurred around cultural alignment both before and during the pandemic?
Well, we saw a couple of findings related to that, according to senior leaders. First of all, we saw a decrease in alignment around professional development. Now, probably not surprising that this became less aligned. With organizations struggling to manage key priorities during COVID, it's hard to prioritize development. But we know that professional development is a crucial engagement factor. So it's really critical that organizations don't lose sight of the important role that professional and personal development plays, particularly as the business economy stabilizes over time to come. Employees will be reflecting on the extent to which they were continue to be developed in their role. And so it's important to keep our eye on professional development even in the midst of this crisis. And then the other main finding in terms of a shift was work-life flexibility. We know that most organizations see value in that flexibility, but many organizations, by this report, weren't implementing flexible work policies. We know that's often because they're difficult to manage and track. They're often just considered too hard to employ. But this pandemic has really forced the issue. And so we see organizations investing more and prioritizing more work-life flexibility and flexibility in working hours because it's critical. It's really requisite for operating within a pandemic as individuals are balancing managing work with also parenting and educating their children and caring for loved ones. So the silver lining here is that companies really are employing more work flexibility tactics than they were pre-pandemic, and employees are better off for it.
And where can our listeners find the report?
Great. So simply go to achievers.com/resources and look under the white papers.
Until next time, listeners, I'm Debbie Bola.